welcome.
Yeah. So, like Fire said, we do this every year, and I've actually heard a lot of people say, well, why do you need to do that every year? Why do we have to keep repeating the same things? And a lot of it is that every year we want to hear new experiences. Every year we want to learn about new challenges that other cosplayers are facing. No matter like who you are, no matter what your body, what your skin, what your disability is, your experience cosplaying is going to be different. And the more that we learn and know what everybody else is facing, the more we can grow together and be compassionate toward one another. So we're going to start off by introducing everyone that's here on this panel. Do you want to start, Fire, and we'll just go in a straight line down?
Normally you start.
Oh, normally I start.
Yeah, because you go, I'm Pannon, and then I do my thing, and then David does his and thing.
I guess that's true. I didn't know we were doing it like that.
We throw a con in the mix, and we're all staticky, apparently.
Sure, I'll go first. I'm Pannon. I've been cosplaying for about 20 years. I have represented the U.S. twice in international competitions against about 47 other countries. I used to do mascots for various different sports teams around the U.S. and internationally. And I've done a few red carpet looks, so I've done a lot of like seamstress and props and things like that. I have also been plus size my entire life. I have been on and off diet since I was about 8 years old. Had battles that I continue to fight with eating disorders. As far as mental health, I was diagnosed ADHD and a whole lot of other things that have been a huge revelation to me as I've actually gone into looking after my mental health. And then also, I am pansexual and gender fluid, so that adds a whole other element to everything else. So I'm really excited to be here and to talk with y'all and hear everyone's experiences.
All right. And I'm V-Fire, or Vermilion Fire. I have been cosplaying, thank you, David. I've been cosplaying since 2008, I think. Yes, long time. I am going to be representing Kame a little bit, because she will be arriving late, if at all, but she is also known as Turtle Bunny's Cosplay, has fibromyalgia, and I've actually been watching her craft over the last few days because she's staying at my friend's house, and just kind of seeing the struggles that she goes through firsthand has been very eye-opening. I know I'd seen some of it before, but being there the whole time, it is... there are definitely things that you don't see for disabilities that you don't see them, so you don't think it's a thing. And then when you're there in the moment, it's incredible how much it can change your life and the life of the person who's going through those sort of things. As for me personally, I also deal with ADHD kind of stuff, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, all that kind of stuff. Guys, please take care of your brains. They are also important as part of your body, right? Yeah, so that is where I will be coming from today.
And I'm David.
You didn't do it long.
No, we don't have that kind of time.
That's true.
I'm David. I'm the third person on the podcast, and I'm now distracted by the staticky audio. I apologize.
Oh.
I don't know why it's just me at this point, but I'm just going to lean back here for a little bit, say hi. I suffer from chronic pain. It makes it next to impossible to stand for long periods of time. All that running and jumping is going to be hell for me later, right?
Pay for it later.
Yeah, it's worth it now, and it'll be worth it later, but in about an hour and a half, I'm going to be on my floor going, I hate everything! And that makes cosplaying, standing, doing routines, things along those lines much, much harder. I'm also recognizing I'm in a place of privilege. I am mask presenting. I am white. I have a lot of these different areas where people are going to look at me and go, oh yeah, the world handed to you. And yeah, it kind of is.
Oh, we're going to talk about that later, because that's...
Yeah.
Do you want to go next?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's fix that real quick.
I'm Midnight Persona. I've been cosplaying since 2009. I do competitions, and I do a lot of just weird TikToks and stuff to make people laugh. I suffer with OCD, anxiety, depression. I have diabetes. I'm also I've been having a lot of chronic pains lately, but I haven't been able to get to a doctor to check it out. A lot of anxiety, also based on being a POC and the state of the world. So I struggle with a lot of that through depression and everything. Getting up and just keep going and trucking along. I also have a little bit of a foot problem. A long time ago, I stepped on a needle while we were finishing off little pieces of cosplay. So that's kind of made it hard for me to walk for long periods of times. But it's not as bad as it used to be. So, yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Candace. And Pannon and I have known each other for a long time, like long time. And we've seen each other through all sorts of different iterations of our bodies, our disabilities, our interests. I do cosplay, but not very much anymore. More of what I do is on the photography side of cosplay or in assisting other people. And that's neither here nor there, but I work as an ADA advocate off and on. I've done ADA directorships for a bunch of different conventions, some that you've heard of, some that you definitely have not, some that don't exist anymore. And oh boy, yes. On the disability side, I'm going to go for it here, and you guys are going to be the first convention that I own the whole thing with. So we've got depression, cyclothymia, anxiety, PTSD, CPTSD, and the latest, Pannon doesn't even know this yet, DID, dissociative identity disorder. So I am a system with 7 alters. Physically, I also have disabilities. I have partial paralysis in my right-hand side and complex neuropathy that affects my entire body. And I have fibromyalgia.
So we have the gambit.
Yeah. I run that gambit, the whole thing.
So I guess the first question I want to pose to everybody is, how would you say your experience doing cosplay or even just attending conventions, how would you say those things affect you and just your day-to-day in attending a convention? Do you have a question real quick? Yeah. Oh, sure. Do you want to share an experience?
Well,
Yeah.
like crowds.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really bad for anxiety. Speaking of, feeling like people baby you because they notice that you act differently than other people,
I think you definitely get that a lot.
or getting impatient with you because like you don't know how to respond to them.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing.
Well, and that is a form of ableism that's not recognized very much. And I find in Utah in particular, it's considered to be given as like a gift to people instead of being the holy, innocent, eternal child is what we call it just clinically. Yes, they feel like not only do you have to earn it, but that you're incapable. And so they're going to treat you in an infantilized way pretty much indefinitely. You can turn it around and have some fun with it, but it's always gonna, like, they're gonna do it for sure. That is a whole thing. Yeah.
Does anyone want to go first with their talking about your cosplay experience?
Even piggybacking off of anxiety with crowds, a lot of the times, a lot of my stuff is going to relate to obviously me being like POC. I get the opposite of, I get anxious a lot, but people don't see that as anxiety. They see it as standoffish and mean, or that I don't want to be near them. But a lot of the times it's because I don't know what to say, or I feel awkward, or I don't want to say the wrong thing. So I end up getting a lot of built up anxiety, especially if you're in like a community where maybe someone thought that and then said something bad about you, and now you're worried that everyone else is like, oh, you can't talk to them. And I'm like, I didn't think that, you know. So I deal with that.
I promise, like, after the interaction, we replay the conversation.
Like, did I say something
Oh,
wrong?
yeah.
Oh, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that?
Oh, yeah. The text threads back and forth between people with similar situations. Ooh, some of those are really glorious. Some of them are just sad. Really sad.
I forgot to mention one of mine is I also have hypermobility. I'm just on the line with like EDFs, which means all of my joints are super bendy. I'm double jointed. I actually just barely, I'm recovering from ankle reconstruction surgery I had this summer. that is a whole other ballgame at conventions. For the past probably 20 years, I have had to pack an extra brace with me to conventions just in case my joints decided to just give out randomly. I have had it happen like right before performances. Oh, no. I have had it happen where like I was in a wheelchair for the second half of con because my ankles just gave out. And one of the frustrating things, and probably something you all have experienced, is how hard it is to get diagnosed for things like that medically. Because when I was in high school, I sprained my ankle a lot, and they were just like, well, you're in high school and you're on the basketball team, of course you sprain your ankle a lot. And it was fine until it has happened 2 to 3 times a year for 20 years since then. And it was only last year when I was talking to my primary care physician about it, and she was like, oh, well, let's get you to a physical therapist and have them like fully diagnose you. And they were like, oh, you have hypermobility. It's not that like you're too heavy, which they've been telling you for 20 years. It's that your joints just, they have more stretch in them than a normal joint does.
Yeah, when they put you through like the basic, oh, what's your rotation?
Right.
What,
Right.
you know, how far can things, yeah, it's not until somebody starts asking that they even consider things. It's absolutely.
Right. It wasn't until I was about 37 that they even told me that, and it was like life-changing to even just hear that, like, oh, you don't sprain your ankle all the time because you're overweight. It's because your body is just built differently.
Yeah.
Validating.
Yeah. And like, not that I should have been feeling guilt and shame about my body weight, but that was definitely a source of it, because it was like, well, why can't you lose the weight and then you won't sprain your ankle and hurt yourself all the time? And like, that's been a whole other thing to deal with, especially at conventions where you're walking around all day, you're having fun, and it's easy to get fatigued.
Yeah.
So
Totally. That's for sure a thing. I've had similar experiences with that. And one of the things that you touched on is just because I walk into the con without my cane, without a wheelchair, without a walker, doesn't mean I'm walking out of it that way. And as David was saying, some days I call it performative health. I am great right now. I will pay later. And I have already made that decision. And I'm okay with it because I know that's what this is.
That's masquerade
and I'm
day.
prepared. I know about how much performative health I have, and I can kind of weasel around and say like, all right, I would love to go do that, but I'm not going to because I have to appear on a stage in 3 hours, and I can pack extra water and do extra things. I have emergency meds with me pretty much all the time. There's just different things that we have to do that we've gotten used to, and it's okay. But it's extra planning, and the parts that you don't see are definitely the parts that we don't want you to see. Like, it's a dignity thing. I have had conventions where I've even been working as an ADA director where I've come in with my cane on a day after having a day when I did not need my cane. And people will be like, oh, is that so you can park in the good parking?
Oh, I love that one. Yeah, that one's my favorite.
And I love to say, I would love to not park in the good parking. That would be really great for me. But sure, yeah, if that's what you need.
I had somebody come up to me because it was, again, performative.
Right?
One day it was fine.
Yeah.
And then the thing about
And then
chronic
it
pain is
runs
that
out.
some days it's just, this is now my life right now. And I remember I had a cane, and this coworker was like, what happened? And I was like, well, it's just a thing, don't worry about it. And like, it's my life, right? This is not where I'm now doing this to be performative. And they kept drilling me. Like, oh, so was it a car accident? No. Was it, what happened? And they started doing a
the
list.
what happens are amazing.
And then
aren't
I
they?
decided to screw with them a little bit. A bear. It was bear. That was the long and short of it. And they're like, oh, you got to tell me all the details. And so I started making up this wild story off the top of my head. And he goes, really? No. I was born with a bad knee. What do you want from me?
And pain is totally one of those things too, because you can try to allot for that performative energy, and sometimes you will think like, no, I'm good. I got 4 more hours, and then all of a sudden, no, you do not. Yep. No, you do not. Yep. You moved wrong. You didn't drink enough water. You took the wrong thing, and suddenly you have maybe 4 minutes instead of your 4 hours, and it's much less pleasant. But it's a very common thing. Because people tend to see the best of what we present, they tend to assume that the people, especially in this kind of a position, because there is some privilege in being able to be asked to do things like this. People assume that means that we have a certain level of okay, and I have that certain level of okay right now. Later on tonight, I will not, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback on your point,
Yeah.
and how that kind of translates for me into being a plus size cosplayer.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of our struggles when plus size is that you could wear the exact same costume, exact same store-bought wig, exact same everything as a smaller bodied person, and you would have people lining up for pictures of the smaller, more socially accepted bodied person, and people making online posts about things they don't like about the plus size person.
Oh boy.
And so for me, one of the reasons I got into cosplay making in the first place and competitive cosplay was because, one, they didn't make costumes in my size. I am 6 feet tall. I am size 22 on the bottom. I am a large person. And they just did not make costumes that fit me. And so I learned how to make my own costumes that fit me. And I feel like with plus size cosplay, and I'm not sure how this translates over in other areas, but I feel like there's this need to overcompensate this performativeness where I'm it's not enough if I cosplay that character, I have to make that character stand out just to be as good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's where I got into a lot of the competitive circuit, is because I would go way above and beyond. And I'm I might as well start competing with these because I've poured so much work in it just to be normal, just to be at an acceptable level where I'm not going to feel like people are going to point and be oh, well, you're the fat Naruto.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You're a cool Naruto.
Added names that get just tacked on. Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of those.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's just what I'm...
No, for sure. Because everybody experiences some version of it, right?
Yeah, I could piggyback off that saying the same thing as being a known representation, because I've had plenty of people go, oh, black people don't compete in masquerade and they don't like anime, and that's not being a plus size black person being hey, we're here, just so you know, and then having to do more or make things more original to me so that people don't look at me and go, those characters aren't black or fat, so what are you doing? Right. And I'm being myself, what do you want from me, So being that representation and then trying to put on that smile rather than crumbling into myself because I'm well, I don't fit in. You know?
And it's the instinct. The instinct is absolutely to be okay, this is no longer safe for me.
Yep.
So I'm going to withdraw. I'm not going to make myself deal with it if it's not safe. And there's so few spaces that are safe. Even here, I guarantee that after this convention, there will be a big stream of people talking to Banzai about things that just were heart-wrenching, that have nothing to do with the con. They have to do with certain people not understanding how to treat other human beings.
Yep.
And that's huge. And when I do photography, we run into that all the time. It's one of the things that Pannon and I have been able to work on so well together. They can trust that I am not going to over-edit anything. I'm not changing Pannon's size or shape if I'm editing. My role as a photographer for any kind of mobile aid, just anything you've got, if it's still going to be there in 3 weeks, I will not be editing it unless that's specifically what you're asking for. And if you are, we are going to have a talk about whether or not you are okay. And if this is meant to compensate for something, because if it is, I will not be participating, and I will be asking you to talk to a professional that deals in mental health about that. If it will still be there in 3 weeks, even if it is not photo accurate, it is part of who you are. And if you want photo accurate, just print something from the internet. Don't hire a photographer.
And I want to throw something out there too, because I'm actually gonna have to leave here very soon. I really want to get this out first, and it ties on so perfectly. When you go out to get photos of your amazing cosplays, because like again, everyone in here has incredible costumes. If you're not in costume, you still look freaking amazing right now. Guys, you are wonderful, and not every photographer out there knows how to shoot for your body type. Find the ones that do. Kame, who's I'm kind of like half representing right now, is an incredible photographer with her wife, and they know how to shoot and celebrate plus size. And again, that emphasis on celebrating it, not that it's like, some people might get mad at me for that or something, I don't care. You guys are beautiful, and there's not a reason you should be ashamed of being who you are. There are things that you do not have control over. It's not just a one answer to why things are the way they are for you, and you should be proud of who you are. And you can find photographers out there that can bring that beauty to you. My best friend is plus size, and she was feeling really, really down one time, and so I was like, you know what? I entered in a contest with your fellow photographer from the previous panel, actually, Sudi.
Yeah.
Where she was doing a contest for a Queen's photo shoot for best friends. And you had to write down why. And I was like, my best friend has been going through a hard time. She does not think she's beautiful. And that's... I can't cuss on my podcast. But sorry, I'm going to cry. I wanted her to feel beautiful, because even though there were all this crappy things happening in her life, she has always been there for everybody, and despite what society thinks of her, she is a beautiful person, and I'm so glad that we won that. And I was able to go out and we haven't shared the photos yet, we just have kind of kept them to ourselves, but we were calling each other names the whole time. We were the most unelegant queens out there. But you guys are beautiful. Don't forget that. And that's what I'm going to say, because I have to leave now.
Before you go, hold on. I need to ask, though, because as a plus size person to a straight size person, one of the things we struggle with is feeling like we're ruining your photos by being in them.
No, you're not. You are not ruining my photos. You are adding to them. Be there, please.
Thank you for saying it, because when I say it, it sounds pretentious. There we go. Because it means a lot. And as a photographer, honestly, you look at all the things, it really doesn't ruin anything. But again, I can say it, and I am in this body. It means something entirely different coming from somebody in a straight size body.
Well, I mean, anytime that I get a chance to photograph with some of these great cosplayers who have human bodies.
Yes.
That's really what it comes down to. They have human bodies. I'm uplifted because I get to be with people with talent. And that's the first thing that I'm looking at. Wow, you are so talented. And that's the first thing that we should be looking at, is who these people are individually, before we look at, any societal takeaways according to them, right?
No.
I don't know if this is going to be negative or anything, but I know I struggle, or a long time ago I struggled really badly with being the plus size or black friend in the picture, because I would go to cons and people would go, oh, we'll take pictures of these guys, and then separate me from the group of people, and it sucked. Or I would have to pick a background character because I didn't fit the main character, or because I was plus size or black, oh, well, don't be Sailor Moon, why don't you be like Pluto? And I'm like, okay, I guess, So, now I'm like, no, I'm doing whatever I want, go away.
Yes.
But back then it was a really hard struggle. And I think through that I learned about more of my anxiety and certain things that I'm like, okay, I know where my boundaries are, and certain things I can do and people I can't do groups with, because I'm like, you guys are going to attack me on this and I'm not going to do that. So
I think one of the things we need to be really careful of is our language. when we are talking about things we want to cosplay or things we are suggesting our friends to cosplay. Because it can be really hurtful when you get into a new series and automatically your friends are like, well, be the plus size character.
Yep.
Be the black character.
Yep.
Be, you know,
Absolutely.
be the tiny character.
Yep.
Right.
You know, I want to be the main character. I want to be the Disney princess. I want to be whatever I want to be. You know, it doesn't matter what size, color, shape that person is. I want to be what I want to be. I want to be with the character that resonates with me. And so, like, you may be coming from a place of like, well, I just really wanted you to take part and be part of this group. Okay, that's great. Let me pick something that I want to make, you know? Show your support by supporting me in that character choice. One of the most harmful things that I hear said just among cosplayers hanging out is, I can't cosplay this until I weigh this. I can't cosplay this until
Happens all the
I have
time.
these muscles.
Or I can't cosplay this because I don't even have that skin color. I hear that so much,
Yes.
and it frustrates me.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how much that affects themselves, but also the people around them.
Absolutely.
So a lot of my straight-sized friends will say stuff like, well, I have this as a goal cosplay, and it's like some bikini cosplay, something or other. And they're like, but I can't do it until I'm down to this weight. And I'm like,
Yeah.
do you know how damaging that is to me? That is very triggering to me and some of my past eating disorder stuff to hear that. Because, like, last week I cosplayed that character, and that tells me that you thought I didn't deserve to cosplay that. So I think we just need to be a lot more aware of how those things are translating to our friends, and how powerful words, and especially the words of our friends, can be with cosplay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we're expected to be the ones that do more of the emotional lifting in groups. I get that. But we get tired. We get real tired.
It's
so
so
the more
exhausting.
people realize, right? Like the more that people realize the emotional labor that's going into that, the better. And it's absolutely a thing. And every single person in your group, when you do a group, is going to have a different kind of privilege within their life. And this is where I'm going to call you out on your statement earlier.
I mean, we can edit out of the podcast.
Man,
That's done.
no, that's not right.
I don't know what we're talking about.
So privilege is just privilege, okay? You don't get a ton of control over it, and anybody can feel free to disagree with me on this. This is just me saying what's worked for me. My personal theory on it is, you can try to wish it away or apologize for it all day, but that does not help my situation. What helps my situation is if you use it to the best of your ability. And not to step on people, just get as far as you can with that. But once you get there, your job, in order to make it not a negative for other people, is to reach your hand back for the people who don't have it and pull them up with you.
Absolutely.
That's how you counter privilege.
Yeah. Like, no one's meant to feel bad for having the privilege that you do.
No.
You can't help that.
No.
But if you use that privilege to be like act better than other people, then yeah, it's terrible. But if you reach back and go, look, I know I have a platform because of the way I look, so I'm going to grab all my friends that I know who normally won't have that opportunity, and I'm going to say, hey, I want you to talk. Hey, I want you to say stuff, because people need to hear you. Since I could tell my story, now it's your turn. You know?
And you got to do that with accessibility as well.
Yep.
There are so many spaces that I have been able to get into because of my experience, my age, just the fact that I can get into them. And by getting into those doors, by saying, no, let me talk to your ADA team. What are your plans for accessibility? What do you have down? I can't tell you how many conventions that have been brand new that I've been invited to as a consultant, and they'll say, okay, we want you to come in for the first day or 2 days and give us your notes. And when I come back and say, great, how do you think you did? And they go, we did great. We measured everything. And you go, oh, and that's, you're going to have a hard one with this. And you sit them down and you say, it's much more than that. Do you have a quiet room? What kind of accessibility features do you actually have? What kind of mobility features are you allowing for? Just because you measured and you met the bare minimum of the law does not mean that you are accessible. And by putting myself into those rooms and doing that, I am creating space for other people who otherwise might not be able to participate. And this happens in a number of ways. And for those of you who maybe don't struggle with the same things that your friend struggles with, sit down and have a nice talk session and ask them, in which ways can I make this experience something that is easier for you? How can I include you better on your terms? Not what I think you need, but what do you actually need? And then try to work within that.
One thing I wanted to add on to Persona's comments, especially about lifting one another up, and also like just pulling everyone else forward, but remembering that people are more than their disability,
Yes.
more than their skin color or size. As much as I love being on this panel, and I will always be an advocate for like disabilities, cosplayers of color, plus size cosplayers, cosplayers of every body type, that's not always the only thing I want to talk about.
Yep.
And I think that's true for everyone on this panel. I think Kalika is an amazing advocate for all of those things, but she's also an incredible TikToker. She's also an amazing makeup artist. And I want to have her on our show for like all of those things and not just base it on the labels.
A tokenization, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to avoid carrying that burden. There's so many great examples, and by great I mean terrible examples, of reaching out to, hey, you're a person of color. You know the struggles that come with that. Come talk on our show for an hour and a half about your plight as if you are a monolith. And that's not fair to anybody, let alone that one person. And so to make sure that you can just sit down and go, man, it's a hard day. How are you doing? You know, just not even, it doesn't have to be anything other than, I'm here, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you need space for. By having space for somebody who is so used to being tokenized in that way, you give them room just to be human again. Because if they feel like they have to be that monolith, they have to be the token queer person, the token anything, that makes it so that way they feel like they're always on a pedestal, whether they like it or not. And nobody wants to be watched 24/7. They just want to be human.
Well, and nobody wants to feel like the words that they say have to represent the entire group that they just happen to belong to. That is really difficult. It's heavy stuff to try to carry. I've had so many emails of people being like, well, why did you think that you could say this about disabled people? I was saying it about me. I'm very sorry. I will continue to be sorry. I will continue to try to learn. Please also apply for these things. We get very tired.
On that note, I actually want to move on to the topic of how we can improve and do better, how you can be an ally, and how we can fight for promoting others, how we can make space for everybody at the con. Does anyone have suggestions, ideas, experiences they want to share?
A lot of times for me, it's checking in. Because a lot of friends that I have, they mean well, but, they won't check in until they find out that I'm, losing it or having a meltdown. And they're like, are you good? And I'm like, yesterday I was great. I was posting about how happy I was. Now today I'm melting down and suddenly you appeared. So it feels like you only want to be there when I'm, falling apart. Or vice versa. I'm happy, so you want to be here. But when I have a meltdown, you're like, no, I'm good. So a lot of times for me, it's checking in and even just talking about situations. Oh.
Yeah, I honestly just think finding more ways to incorporate things that do work for people. It can be as little as scheduling. It can just be staying aware. And also taking yourself out of the picture sometimes for short events, recommending somebody else who can do as good, if not better, of a job. If you've done this same panel every year for 4 years in a row, you can say, I love that you're inviting me to this. And thank you. I'm glad that you're having this. However, I've been hurt. Please reach out to this selection of people that I know could do a phenomenal job. And we do that in all arenas. I've brought other people who have just wanted to possibly learn sign language all the way up into ADA directorships. We do this stuff constantly, but it is by consciously making the choice and the effort to make space for people.
I think that's a great point that you both made. Checking in, especially, I think a lot of times with our friends groups, we don't even know what their needs are that aren't being met before they get to a meltdown, before they get to a boiling point. Like maybe things are fine until you hit that 4 minutes of
And you're just down.
Left,
yeah.
Or, until someone's just stepped on that last thread of holding it together that you have. So being able to openly communicate with your friends about what your needs are, even if you what's helped with some of my friends is to have like a code word that we have when we're feeling anxious or panic attacky in public. If you're even nonverbal, some of my friends have an emoji that they'll send me when they are not okay, and I know that they need to take a break. Making it as accessible as possible and as easy to communicate when you're not okay is really helpful. And whether you have those issues or not, having communication set in place ahead of time is really important.
Normalizing a lot of things is going to be vital as well. I've been pushing for several years with different conventions to say okay, so there's another disability panel, there's another inclusion panel. Can we make it more specific? Can we narrow these things down and do something really fun? Let's get into PTSD of Jessica Jones. Let's pick a specific property and just tear into it just a little bit and get some specifics, because I feel while everybody in this room has an interest in the topic and is willing to put their time into it, I'm not seeing everybody in this room for all of their complexity. As much as I would love to, we have less than an hour up here total, and I'm not going around and asking each of you about your lives. I would love to be able to touch base and make more people feel sane, give more people more opportunities. But also, when I pitch things like that, I get told that there's not an interest. And I'm sure that's happened. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. So when everybody wants to see more of this content, when you want to learn more about something very specific that you don't know about, please request those topics. Let the conventions that you're going to know what you want to hear, know what you're interested in, because they really don't see you unless you make yourself seen. It makes all the difference in the world. There have been panels and events that we've been able to do only because attendees specifically requested them. Things like quiet rooms for people who have neurodivergencies, those don't just happen. Those are fought for. And they only happen once people start making requests. Things like sign language interpreters, those only happen when they're requested. What's that? I have indeed, but I have been out of the Banzai circuit for a long while, so this is my first year back in. But yeah.
And that's one of the other harder parts is for the advocating that you do, all of that hard work, and once you step away, somebody else steps in, and their habits, their system, their empathy even can be completely changed. So you may go to a con one year and go, wow, I felt so included, I felt so great, this was an environment that I felt safe in, and then you go back the next year because I don't know, I feel like I get to see a fun side of behind the curtain of Banzai, and then shortly after everything changes, right? Because people grow, people change, people move. So as long as you continue, as you said, requesting those things, the new person, the new team, the new staff will all be aware this was something that worked, this is something that we liked, and this is something that we want to continue because we can invite more people and be in a more inclusive territory and space.
Yes, and things that were used. I cannot tell you how many events I've worked with, big events. Some of them, because of NDAs, I can't even tell you what they are. But, yeah. But with that, if something is not used to the level that they want to see it used, I have to fight so much harder to get that access back. It slips. If you have an opportunity to do public speaking, if you have an opportunity to request special services, do it. Do it. If your friend's too nervous to do it for them. If they need to put ramps in place, make the requests. If you have a friend who has difficulty with any of their senses, ask for accommodation for that. Let these places know, no, I did notice. Or, hey, there was a sign language interpreter for this event, but there wasn't for this one. Why not? Because I guarantee it's a money issue. And they're not going to put money where they don't think people care about it. And I hate that that's the reality of it, but it is. There's a limited budget for every single convention, even the ridiculously huge ones. And they will fight on access. They will fight for all sorts of things. The number of times that I've had to sit down as a director with a fire marshal and say, no, you're not closing my accessibility door. I don't care how many people are in the building. You're not locking them in. That door has to remain open for accessibility. I've had con directors come to me and say, hey, Candace, we think you're about to get arrested. And I'll say, great, cool. That's a federal offense if they do. Let them. That's the job. That's how it works. And I have never yet had one of my fire doors closed on me. So there's that.
Real quick.
So, yeah. You're good.
So, has Banzai done anything, put things like that in place so far?
They have in the past, I believe, correct?
We have in the past, and if you have, like, I would love to share notes with you after.
Yeah, let's
talk
do it.
about what we can do. I'm not, like, paid staff anymore.
Right.
I'm board of directors, so I can definitely help push for things like that. Unfortunately, we have to start wrapping up the panel, but I did want to end and let each person on our panel's list here, what is a bit of advice that you would give to maybe folks who are afraid to cosplay because of their, insert the descriptor here,
Yeah.
and that's been stopping them for a while? What advice do you have?
If I know I'm having a hard time, whether it be physically or mentally, I'll try to incorporate that into my cosplay. So if I know there's a character that's quiet and I'm not feeling it, I will pack that extra cosplay so they know this character is mute or quiet, like Blink or something. So like I don't want to talk, so I'll be into myself. Or if I know I have to use something to help me get around, I'll kind of build it into the cosplay so that way it still kind of works with it. So that thing makes things easier for me.
This one's going to sound racy and it's not, so just bear with me. Do it alone first. Just do it for yourself. Get comfortable just wearing it, feeling it. And then the next step is not to take it out into public. The next step is not to call or hire a cosplay photographer. It's to hire a boudoir photographer. You're not going to take it off. You're not going to do anything racy. What you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, I know that it is literally your job to hype people up. I need somebody to gas me up and take some killer photos of me so that when I feel like garbage and feel like I don't belong, I can look at those photos until I feel strong.
Hell yeah.
And they are better at that than us cosplay photographers because that is the job. The whole thing is just to like bump you up, make you feel good. Yeah. So feel good first a little bit and then stretch that boundary just a little.
Let's see. So a couple years back, I started like, I don't know if like it's a hashtag or like what we've been calling it, but we do this thing called Don't Wait to Cosplay, and you spell it with your weight. And for me, it was like a personal goal for that year. Like I wasn't gonna wait on my weight to do cosplay. I actually picked this one because of that, because it shows its tummy, and I was like super uncomfortable with that. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna wear it anyway. And I wore it to like one of the biggest cons of the year, Anime Expo, and it helped gas me up. Like so many people came up to me and they're like, I love your Link cosplay. I am so glad that you cosplayed Link because now I feel like I can do it. I took part in a burlesque show at one of the conventions, actually. So I did like just some like corsetry and stuff in one of my cosplays, and they just did like a stage show where you walk across, and the crowd was so supportive. And I had so many friends afterwards come up and be like, "Oh my gosh, like." I had been like on the fence. I didn't like my body, and seeing like so many different bodies represented in this show, I really want to try it next year. So you never know like the impact you're going to have with what you wear.
That's what I use TikTok for a lot of the times, to test a cosplay and then let other people see that, no, I'm here and we're going to do this, we're going to feel good about ourselves,
Yeah.
And that goes for being comfortable with whatever that means for you, too. If you're a person who has sensory issues and you will not be wearing a wig, guess what? That's fine. Yeah. You're not going to be photorealistic walking around anyway. I'm so sorry if that's news. But you're not. And so if there are little things, if this character shows a lot of leg and you are not about to shave, guess what? Just do it anyway. If anybody's getting that close to your leg, you have my permission to kick them.
That was a motto we used to use. You'd be like, if they're close enough to see your cosplay that close, they're close enough to be hit.
Absolutely. We've used props when our daughters were very young that were intentionally long. Bow staffs are fantastic because you can put a wall on one side, put the staff on the other side, and if they get in your bubble, you just spin it. And that's like, you just gotta do what you gotta do to take your space. Don't feel bad about taking your space, and acknowledge that whatever right anybody else has to be here, so do you.
Absolutely.
You absolutely do. And whatever that means, whatever it is that you need, request it. Ask for it. The worst case scenario is they might tell you no, and you might end up in the exact same boat you were already in. It will not hurt you. And the more people who start asking for things, even if it's just more people getting told no, the more likely we are to start getting to yes.
Yep.
I think that's a great note to end it on. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thanks for coming in. Thank you
for
to our
having
panelists.
us.
It was so great to have you guys all here.
Thank you for
We
having
had a
me.
good time. Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.